you beautiful beings out there. Good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you may find yourself right now. Welcome. My name is Natalia. Welcome to my channel. Thank you for being here. Appreciate it. And today's video is going to be a little bit about basically an explanation of how I ended up living in Costa Rica unexpectedly. So right now it is August 2023 and I arrived in Costa Rica just over 2 years ago now, and basically have been living here pretty much ever since. At the end of the summer of 2021, I basically packed up all of my belongings in Miami, which is where I am mostly from and have been living the majority of my life. And yeah, after a couple of tumultuous years, you guys know what I'm talking about, just with a lot of both internal and external things shifting around in my life, I decided to go on an adventure and basically pack up my belongings, get rid of a lot of them. Actually ended up selling and giving away like just massive amounts of things that I owned, and packed up what was left in a storage and set off to basically start what I believed was going to be a trip to come volunteer here in Costa Rica and Guatemala at the time. And yeah, packed up my belongings, said goodbye to my besties, and made my way over here. That was in July of 2021. And my first stop was at a intentional community off of the Pacific coast of Costa Rica, in the Guanacaste region, close to a town called Nosada. It's a very well-established, essentially spiritual eco-village where I signed up for their work exchange program for a couple of months. It's a really great option. If you guys want to know more about that, just let me know and I can share a little bit more about where that was and how the program worked. So I set off to start my volunteer adventure here in Costa Rica. I arrived at the beautiful eco village, which is very well established and has been running there for over 20 years, and has about, give or take, 100 residents there at any given time, depending on the time of the year. That takes into account their visitors who are there for events and retreats, etc. Their volunteers, which can be up to 30 at a time, and also their residents. And so my work exchange position there entailed supporting the kitchen staff in their production of amazing high vibe vegan food. And I had a great time while I was there. A cool detail about their work exchange program there is that I was able to have my own accommodations, a really cool little casita or bungalow. And yeah, a lot of stuff happened there for me. I think in another video, if you guys are interested again in hearing more about that experience, I would be happy to share more. And so I essentially spent my first month in Costa Rica there. And I do want to mention that I had actually visited Costa Rica very briefly before I came to be here for an extended period of time to do volunteer exchange work. I had passed through Costa Rica basically for a couple of days on my way to a permaculture convergence in Cuba way back in 2009. But ever since that trip, I knew that I would definitely be coming back to Costa Rica, to Central America. It's always been an area that has really called to me. And yeah, I just knew that I wanted to spend more time here. So that was a big part of just taking the leap. And at 37 years old, after things not really kind of panning out back in Miami, including the end of a long relationship, some work things that didn't really end up working out for me, yeah, just some personal things that I had going on. I took the leap. I decided to just trust my gut, my heart, really, more than my gut. Trust my heart and come to Costa Rica. So I had a great time volunteering at the first stop. After a month, I ended up having some twists and turns in terms of different places that I stopped at to volunteer that I found via Workaway, which is a really great platform if you're looking to do any volunteering or work exchange all over the world. They have hosts that post their profiles and all different kinds of jobs that you can assist with or contribute your energy to. So it's a really great resource. Highly recommend Workaway. And basically, mosquito in the lens. And yeah, so basically just some things that kind of shifted about. I made a couple of stops that didn't quite fit or align with what I was really wanting to put my energy towards at that time, which has to do with like permaculture and working on different projects that are related to basically sustainability and organic farming is really kind of those were my main areas that I wanted to focus on, because that was something that I started and I actually I became certified in way back in 2007 and kind of lost track of that. And so I wanted to just take that up again and practice that. And so, yeah, like I said, some twists and turns occurred and I found myself at a couple different places that didn't quite, suit my needs at the time and didn't quite pan out. And then the universe, with its sense of humor, actually led me all the way over to the Caribbean coast of Costa Rica, which was an area I had no plans on coming towards the Caribbean coast of Costa Rica. And mostly because being from Miami, and I just have a lot of access to like Caribbean vibes basically where I'm from, and I just wanted to kind of experience different kinds of environments is mostly the reason why I hadn't considered coming over here. But the universe and life had different plans for me, as it often does for us, and I was led here to a project that I connected with the host on Workaway that was going on actually right in the finca or the farm where I am currently living. And it's a funny story. When my transportation was actually arriving into the Puerto Viejo area, Puerto Viejo is the town that I live basically next to, in the outsides of Puerto Viejo. De Limon is the full name of the town. I had this really interesting feeling of coming home, and it was really kind of even like it took me by surprise a little bit. I was like, this is funny, like why do I feel like this is familiar for some reason? And I kind of just shrugged it off because I was like, oh, well, it's just Caribbean vibes and I love Caribbean vibes and, it's kind of what I'm used to at home. So it must be something related to that, it must be because of that. And I ended up arriving at the project that at that time was here at the finca where I live. And womp womp. Basically, the project was not at all what had been described on Workaway. Like, the pictures even that were posted on the Workaway profile were completely not the real situation. Like, that had been where the project had existed prior to when they had moved onto the property here. And basically everything was, I mean, I'm not exaggerating, honestly. It was a bit in a shambles. Like, they had arrived a couple of weeks before I came before I arrived to the project, and those couple of weeks had some of the heaviest rains that they had seen in a couple of years in the area. And so it was just kind of like a makeshift camp at that point, and everything like was surrounded by mud everywhere. Their kitchen was like at that point just like a makeshift area of like wooden pieces of just wood kind of thrown up haphazardly. And the first thing I mentioned is the kitchen, because the kitchen is definitely one of the most important things for me. I can deal with many things if I can cook myself decent meals, but anyway. And in terms of like the bathroom wash station, it was extra rustic. I think I'm gonna leave it at that. I live in a pretty rustic situation now, and I'm very happy with it. I'll get more into that maybe at another point, but that was extra rustic. And there were just some other things in terms of kind of like the energy of the host that I didn't quite align with at that time. And so I ended up thanking him and letting him know that I would just spend the night and find my way elsewhere the next morning. And it was definitely interesting at that moment. I had no plan D is where I was at that point. Not plan B or C, but plan D. I had no backups in terms of like any other places that I had communicated with on Workaway. And also, you know, I definitely came to Costa Rica and to start my whole volunteering journey with a very set budget. And so it was basically critical for me to be able to stay in Central America the amount of time that I had planned, that I be able to, you know, volunteer and have room and board covered. And so, yeah, it was definitely a little bit nerve-wracking at that point. But I had to follow my intuition and ensure that, you know, I wasn't settling for something because of that fear of like, oh no, what's next? I'm running out of money, like all those things that, of course, did definitely cross my mind. And so, funny things that happen in life. When I mentioned to the host, you know, I gave him, you know, a lot of thanks for the opportunity and told him just didn't feel right for me at that time. He was very understanding, and he was like, well, actually, this land that we're on right now is my good friend's land. And they have a volunteer program as well. So if you'd like, you can speak with him and see if maybe it works out for you to move over to the other side of the property and work with them. And I was like, oh, wow, amazing. Thank you. Fast forward, basically, I arrived exactly where I was meant to be after some of those twists and turns and, you know, those things that happen in life, the roller coaster rides. I was really, really grateful to the owner of the finca when I met him. We really got along super well, and it just so happened that the volunteer that had been here was leaving shortly, and they had no other volunteers booked after that for another month. And so he's like, yeah, you're welcome to stay here for a month. You'll be in the volunteer accommodations alone, if that's okay with you. And I was like, really? That's amazing. And there were just so many other little details that it just was so clear to me when I got here and when I spoke with him, and as I started to get to know his son, whom is my current partner, David, or his stepson to be specific, and my neighbor, my current neighbor, who is a very good friend. And I just started to connect with the folks here and connect with the land here. I was able to work with cacao, which is one of the many beautiful sacred medicines that are growing here. Process other different plant medicines as well. Visit the amazing, beautiful waterfalls that are just like a 20-minute hike away, or the river as often as I wanted, and just have space to also deeply connect with myself, which is something that I had already kind of set out upon when I started my trip. And in the first place that I was volunteering, daily meditation was actually required of us to attend at least 4 times a week. And that was a big part of why I chose that first place where I went to volunteer. And after a month of volunteering here, which was August of 2021, I packed up my suitcase and, you know, I was incredibly grateful for having landed in this magical place with these beautiful beings. And some things started stirring. At that time, I was very good friends with David. We had, really gotten to know each other on a friendly level. And as I was really focused on my own personal journey and growth at that time in my life, I really wasn't looking for, any kind of romantic situations, if you will. I basically, I just was like, okay, well, I guess I'm leaving. And next thing I know, I went down into town and just rented a dorm at a really cool tiny little hostel on the beach here in Puerto Viejo, and was just kind of enjoying my last couple of days in this area before I was supposed to meet up with my best friend to do a bit more traveling around Costa Rica, head over to Guatemala together, where my plan was to basically stay in Guatemala and volunteer a bit. And on my last couple of days in town, David, my partner, my current partner, and I spent more time together, and chemistry and sparks and, those things started to happen, really intense chemistry and sparks and connection. And basically, when I was leaving, as we were saying goodbye to each other, we both were luckily brave enough to be honest with each other about the things that we were feeling. And he essentially said to me, todo es posible, which means everything is possible, but kind of translate into anything is possible. And basically I set off on my travels with my best friend, and he and I kept in touch throughout the next couple of weeks, every day. And things really only grew from there in terms of my personal relationship with my partner. And he told me, he's like, I know life is crazy right now for everyone almost, and there's just a lot of things up in the air in life, but I'm here, and if you want to come back, I'm here, essentially. So that really caught me off guard. To be honest, I don't consider myself a jaded person. I actually consider myself somebody who has worked on really keeping my heart open in a balanced and healthy way after, having gone through my share of life experiences. I will leave it at that. But I also really try not to have any expectations. I'm going to say that. And I was like, well, let's see how things kind of unfold in these next couple of weeks. And I did also think to myself, though, that it just so happened that at that point in my life, there was really no reason why I couldn't maybe go, back to Costa Rica and see how things would end up. So fast forward, I had an amazing time traveling around to other places of Costa Rica, visiting Guatemala, and then I found myself back here. And things have been great ever since. That was back in the end of 2021. Spent time together back here at La Finca, and then David actually ended up coming to Colombia to come visit my mom with me for a couple of months. And it was after that trip to Colombia that I made the decision to essentially really move here. I wasn't sure before, things with my partner and I were very new. And then after those months together and discussing things on a more, serious note in regards to, me moving here, I decided that was what I would do. So that was in February of 2022 that I actually said I am going to live in Costa Rica. And I came back from Colombia and really have been living here ever since that point. I do want to clarify that a lot of things I want to clarify. I want to clarify that I live here on a tourist visa, as many people from other countries actually do. And so that means that currently I have to do a visa renewal or a border run every 90 days with my passport from the United States. And I have to be outside of the country on those border runs for at least 24 hours. And they can also kind of red flag you if they see that you've done, only 24-hour stays outside of the country back to back, essentially. Yes, actually, David recently had to go back to Colombia because of a situation with his visa and the last border run that he made, but that's another story. So I do live here on a tourist visa, and I am working out my work situation, something that I can also get further into in another video if you guys are interested in that. I did just become certified as a yoga teacher and will be starting to teach yoga at the end of this month. I'm very excited. There will be a video about that for sure. And I also do other remote healing techniques, essentially quantum healing, which is based on similar techniques to past life regression, which I will also be doing some content on because it's something that I'm very passionate about. I'm very excited to share with you guys. And yeah, I think that's kind of sums up the story of how I ended up living in Costa Rica. And I live at my partner's family's farm. He and I share our living space, which is our beautiful open casita. You can kind of see a bit around here. It's a little bit messy, but I think I'm gonna have to get used to just sharing it as it is. I really love living here. It's just incredible in so many ways. I've always been somebody who really wanted to live close to nature. I will say that being close to nature is amazing, but also can be very challenging. And there's many reasons why I say that. Everything from critters to just living in essentially extreme weather situations. The casita is open, as you can kind of tell here. This fan is the savior. But even now, I'm just swatting away mosquitoes left and right. Tons of ants everywhere. And, you know, it's just part of life here. Humidity is so crazy here. I will be making a video on how humidity has essentially made me a minimalist by force. But yeah, so I think that wraps up my how I ended up living in Costa Rica video. For now, there may be a part 2 just with more information and clarity on how I live here, how I have been able to stay here, more of the like actual functional details of how, how I survive here, I should say. And that's it from me and Pirochiri, who has been here also swatting away mosquitoes while I film this video. Again, thank you, beautiful beings, for being here, for tuning in to my channel. My name is Natalia, and hope to see you on the next one. Bye. Gracias.